A systematic review of licensing, trust, and reputation in AI-driven marketing. Author, Neil Chinnock, Chief Business Administrator, iTech. The Integrity Deficit. Part 2. Adapted from the DBA Systematic Literature Review by Neil Chinnock. The Systematic Literature Review Neil Chinnock carried out serves as the foundational research project for the first module of his Doctorate in Business Administration, DBA qualification. A rigorous, scholarly inquiry into one of the most pressing challenges facing digital reputation management today. The review focuses on evaluating whether digital licensing policies can effectively mitigate the reputational risks posed by negative search engine optimization, SEO tactics, and the proliferation of AI-powered misinformation. As the opening module of the DBA, this research is designed not only to demonstrate mastery of systematic research methods, but also to contribute original insights into a rapidly evolving post-Turing digital environment, where human and AI-generated content increasingly converge and complicate governance, accountability, and trust. From the outset, this doctoral-level investigation recognizes the profound transformation underway in digital marketing. Traditional SEO, grounded in deterministic algorithms optimizing link graphs, keywords, and web content, is giving way to AI generative engine optimization, IGEO. In this emergent paradigm, AI agents act as fiduciaries of truth, synthesizing and evaluating content with an authority that profoundly impacts digital reputations. This shift introduces unprecedented governance complexities, AI-generated hallucinations, plausible but false information, and semantic poisoning distort the information ecosystem and threaten the integrity of digital reputations. These phenomena have not only technical implications, but also deep social and ethical ramifications, as they challenge the very foundations of digital trust on which businesses and consumers rely. The review identifies an integrity deficit in current regulatory and self-regulatory frameworks, where digital credibility is increasingly decoupled from enterprise ethics and effective oversight, creating fertile ground for reputational harm that can cascade rapidly across digital platforms. The paper highlights concrete examples of reputational sabotage through Company Evasion, where malicious actors dissolve and reconstitute companies to escape sanctions or negative digital footprints. This evasive tactic renders voluntary compliance frameworks ineffective and exemplifies enforcement paralysis, as regulators struggle to keep pace with rapid corporate formations and dissolutions. The phenomenon is particularly pernicious in jurisdictions with lenient corporate dissolution laws or lax identity verification requirements during company registration. These challenges are compounded by AI hallucinations, wherein generative models produce fabricated yet convincing content that misleads consumers and distorts market perceptions. Together, these phenomena constitute a hybrid threat landscape, where external attacks and internal AI inaccuracies synergistically undermine digital trust and reputational integrity, often with little recourse for those targeted. The theoretical framework developed during this intensive module marks a deliberate shift from the resource-based view, RBV, towards a legitimacy-based view, LBV, of competitive advantage. Whereas RBV emphasizes control of internal resources and technical capabilities as sources of competitive edge, LBV stresses institutional legitimacy, moral authority, and statutory accountability as critical in the post-Turing era. This represents a significant conceptual advance, positioning statutory licensing, modeled on the UK's Security Industry Authority, SIA framework, as essential to restoring accountability where voluntary compliance and corporate social responsibility, CSR, efforts have proven insufficient. This shift acknowledges that in a digital environment layered with AI-generated content, trustworthiness is no longer merely a function of operational excellence, but hinges on recognized legitimacy enforced through formal institutions. The LBV framework, therefore, calls for a recalibration of strategic priorities in digital marketing, elevating ethical stewardship and regulatory compliance to the core of competitive strategy. Methodologically, the systematic literature review Neil Chinnock conducted, optimistically, exemplifies the scholarly rigor expected at the DBA level, which is due for submission at the beginning of March 2026, subsequently to be assessed at Teesside University by the course tutor. Employing the SPIDER framework, the research carefully curated 30 high-integrity sources spanning academic journals, regulatory documents, and technical gray literature. These sources were filtered by precise temporal criteria, post-2020 for SEO and post-2023 for generative AI, to ensure contemporaneity and relevance to emergent technologies and risks. This filtering was crucial as the rapid evolution in AI tools and SEO tactics means that older studies often fail to capture the nuances of current challenges. The human-in-the-loop reflexivity protocol was integrated throughout the module's timeline, ensuring critical self-awareness and mitigating bias arising from the researcher's insider status in digital marketing. NVivo 15 software facilitated meticulous thematic coding, triangulation, and synthesis, reinforcing epistemic integrity by excluding unverifiable black hat data and focusing on evidence-based insights. This methodological approach allowed the researcher to navigate the algorithmic governance iceberg, a conceptual scaffold distinguishing between visible and submerged dimensions of digital reputational crisis, ensuring that both overt phenomena and underlying systemic drivers were addressed. The algorithmic governance iceberg metaphor, refined through iterative analysis since October 2025, distinguishes between the superficial failures of voluntary compliance, visible above the waterline, and the systemic drivers of reputational risk submerged below. Above the surface lie the ineffectiveness of soft law frameworks, CSR rhetoric, and voluntary codes of conduct, which lack enforcement power and fail to deter Company Evasion, or black hat tactics. These voluntary approaches are further compromised by the Peltzman effect, whereby risk compensation behaviors reduce compliance incentives. Below the surface, algorithmic volatility emerges as the primary independent variable, driven by AI hallucinations, semantic poisoning, and black hat SEO techniques such as internal site search abuse promotion, ISAP. This volatility destabilizes digital trust by enabling low-quality and false content to crowd out verified material, consistent with Gresham's law of content. This insightful metaphor provides a useful heuristic for policymakers and practitioners alike, emphasizing the need to look beyond superficial compliance and address the deeper algorithmic and behavioral dynamics that drive reputational risk. The thematic synthesis developed during the module applies a multidimensional 5-domain analytical lens: technological, organizational, environmental, economic, and human resources, to reveal the complex interplay exacerbating digital reputation risks. The technological analysis distinguishes between external malicious SEO practices and internal AI-generated inaccuracies, highlighting the dual threat to digital reputation. Organizationally, governance vacuums are exposed, marked by fragmented agency structures and inconsistent ethical commitments among top management. The environmental lens reveals jurisdictional fragmentation and cross-border enforcement gaps that hinder effective regulation, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, that operate transnationally but lack the resources to defend their digital reputations effectively. Economically, the Peltzman effect explains why voluntary compliance is often undermined by risk-taking behavior, underscoring the necessity of statutory licensing as a stabilizing intervention. The human resources perspective identifies a critical ethical skills gap in the digital marketing workforce, noting a pedagogical deficit in applied ethics relative to the prevailing focus on technical tool recall. These findings suggest that without a holistic approach addressing these 5 interconnected dimensions, digital reputation management will remain vulnerable to exploitation and systemic failure. Quantitative data within the reviewed literature underscores the significant economic impact of unfair competition and misinformation on SMEs, which constitute a majority of digital marketing clients, yet lack robust protective mechanisms. Though empirical estimates are limited, available studies suggest substantial revenue losses and reputational damage costs attributable to negative SEO and AI misinformation. This financial vulnerability accentuates the urgency for regulatory safeguards tailored to SME needs. Moreover, the asymmetric power relations between large platform providers, digital agencies, and SMEs further compound these challenges, placing smaller enterprises at a distinct disadvantage in defending their digital identities and reputations. The ethical dimensions of AI-generated content extend beyond hallucinations to include algorithmic bias, lack of transparency, and accountability deficits. The review stresses the imperative of embedding ethical principles in AI design, deployment, and oversight, coupled with human-in-the-loop mechanisms to mitigate harms, uphold fairness, and reinforce trustworthiness. This ethical imperative is central to the proposed shift towards legitimacy-based governance and aligns with broader societal calls for responsible AI governance frameworks. The study highlights that without integrating ethics as a foundational pillar, technological solutions risk perpetuating or exacerbating existing inequities and misinformation. A rigorous gap analysis employing the PICO framework identifies significant research and practice voids. The population gap highlights the vulnerability of SMEs and the absence of tailored regulatory protections. The intervention gap reveals scant research on the applicability and efficacy of statutory licensure models in digital marketing, despite their proven success in regulating the physical security industry. The comparison gap critiques the symbolic nature of voluntary certification and accreditation schemes, which lack rigorous identity verification and ethical vetting, distinguishing them sharply from enforceable statutory licensing. The outcome gap calls for a pedagogical pivot from rote technical recall towards applied ethics and strategic competence, aligned with frameworks such as Bloom's taxonomy, to equip digital marketers for ethical decision-making in an AI-augmented environment. This comprehensive gap analysis underscores the necessity for future empirical and theoretical work that bridges these divides and supports actionable reforms. Neal's investigation concludes that digital marketing currently inhabits a governance vacuum, where technological progress has outpaced legal and regulatory evolution. The prevailing RBV paradigm is obsolete under these conditions. Legitimacy enforced through statutory licensing emerges as the cornerstone for sustainable digital reputation management. The UK's Security Industry Authority, SIA, licensing model is presented as a practical exemplar, combining identity verification, criminal background checks, mandatory ethics training, and ongoing operational accountability to combat malpractices such as Phoenix Company Evasion and unchecked AI misinformation. The study argues that such statutory frameworks, though resource-intensive to implement, offer a durable and enforceable mechanism to restore trust and protect stakeholders in the digital ecosystem. The study recognizes the multiplicity of stakeholders involved in digital reputation governance: SMEs, digital marketers, AI platform providers, regulators, and consumers, each playing distinct roles in a complex ecosystem. Harmonizing these stakeholder interests within an integrated governance framework is essential to effectively combat reputational threats in a post-Turing world. This recognition of multi-stakeholder dynamics highlights the importance of collaborative governance models that can adapt to technological change while ensuring accountability and ethical standards. The study's recommendations, developed iteratively through the module, advocate legislative transposition of the SIA licensing framework into the digital marketing domain, establishing a digital identity license that anchors legal responsibility in verified human operators. Pedagogically, it calls for curriculum reform prioritizing applied ethics, human-in-the-loop oversight, and strategic competence, drawing inspiration from the SIA DOOR supervisor training syllabus. Operationally, the review proposes cryptographic chain of custody mechanisms to secure content verification processes and reinforce accountability, thereby closing the loop on reputation management in an opaque AI environment. These recommendations offer a coherent roadmap for policymakers, educators, and industry leaders seeking to professionalize digital marketing and mitigate emerging risks. The implications of this comprehensive review span theory, practice, and policy. Theoretically, It challenges digital marketing scholarship to foreground institutional legitimacy as the foundation of competitive advantage in an era saturated with AI-generated content. Practically, it highlights the urgent need for SMEs and agencies to adopt formalized safeguards against reputational sabotage and misinformation. From a policy perspective, it advances a compelling case for replacing ineffective voluntary self-regulation with binding statutory licensure regimes that preemptively address risks, rather than relying solely on post hoc legal recourse. This first DBA module exemplifies the value of interdisciplinary synthesis, integrating technical, legal, economic, and ethical perspectives into a coherent governance framework. The professionalization paradox, the tension between the sector's need for ethical professionalism and the prevailing culture prioritizing technical skill over principled conduct, is a recurrent theme that underscores the call for a digital fiduciary model. In this model, digital marketers are reframed as custodians of truth and trust, rather than mere optimizers of visibility. This reframing demands a cultural shift within the industry, elevating ethical judgment and accountability to equal footing with technical proficiency. Moreover, the study exposes the silo effect, pervasive in current literature, where technical researchers, legal scholars, and regulators operate in isolation, resulting in fragmented understanding and policy responses. Neal's Integrated Integrity Framework, IIF, is a strategic attempt to bridge these divides by combining statutory licensing, ethical education, and operational verification into a unified governance approach tailored for the post-Turing environment. This integrative framework offers a promising blueprint for future research and practice, aiming to transcend disciplinary boundaries and foster coordinated action. Looking forward, the review identifies critical avenues for future research, including the development of simulation models to test the application of SIA licensing standards in digital marketing contexts, quantitative assessments of the economic impact of unfair competition and misinformation on SMEs, and empirical evaluations of ethical training curricula designed to reduce unethical practices and reinforce human-in-the-loop oversight. These research directions are vital for translating theoretical insights into actionable policy and operational reforms. Moreover, longitudinal studies tracking the impact of statutory licensing on digital reputation outcomes would provide valuable evidence to support policy advocacy and industry adoption. In sum, the systematic literature review Neal Chinnock carried out during this first DBA module provides a rigorous and original contribution to digital marketing governance scholarship. It thoroughly documents the failure of existing voluntary and technical approaches to adequately address reputational risks arising from the convergence of negative SEO tactics and AI-generated misinformation. By advocating for statutory licensure grounded in a legitimacy-based view, supported by ethical education and operational accountability, the study charts a pragmatic yet visionary path forward. In the post-Turing era, where the line between human and AI content blurs, legitimacy and trust become the new currencies of competitive advantage, and statutory licensing is the mechanism through which these currencies are minted and safeguarded. This research was a thoroughly enjoyable and intellectually stimulating journey, offering deep insights into a complex and evolving field. The process of critically engaging with diverse literatures and synthesizing findings has been rewarding and has strengthened the resolve to pursue further inquiry. With this solid foundation laid in Module 1, there is great anticipation and enthusiasm for the challenges and learning opportunities that Module 2 will bring. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to everyone who has taken an interest in this research and to those who have taken the time to read and watch the work. Your engagement and support are deeply appreciated and serve as encouragement to continue exploring and contributing to this important field. Thanks for watching.